Well, we had a guest on the show last week from Toronto Metropolitan University, and I had to make clear that it wasn't any brand new university, and we kind of joked that the guest would have to get accustomed to hearing that, even though the email address when I sent the email to arrange the guest said Ryerson.ca, because, of course, Toronto Metropolitan University is the new name given to the now former Ryerson University in Toronto. And so what do we learn from this? Dino Sosi is an instructional assistant in technology and media at the University of Toronto, joins us to talk about it. Dino, good afternoon.
Mike, great to hear from you. May I do a quick shout out?
Please do.
My niece Victoria just graduated from the great University of Waterloo, so I just wanted to congratulate her and thank her for all her work, and we're so proud of her.
Go Black, go Gold. It's a fantastic school. Congratulations to her indeed. Glad you could do that this morning, because we're very proud of UW in this community and its graduates.
Great.
So let's talk about now what is known as Toronto Metropolitan University. Is changing a name like this, Dino, an important step forward, in your opinion?
Yes, I think it helps to signify to the various constituents, the students, the staff, that we're taking issues like Indigenous rights and Indigenous culture and atrocities against those communities. We're taking them seriously. And I think it's a really, really positive first step to make sure that people know out loud that that's happening.
On balance, I mean, as the conversation even began around the eventual renaming, there were plenty of conversations around Egerton Ryerson himself and who he was and what he stood for and what he did. And some will say to this day, Dino, that there was good that Egerton Ryerson brought to education generally. So how do we reconcile with that argument as we move forward now under a new name?
One of the best parts about the process that was done to do this name change was that they foregrounded a number of the things that Egerton Ryerson did, like Indigenous school fundraising and petitioning the Crown to confirm that different peoples of Mississaugas had legal title to their reserves. So I think there's this, we need to, as you say, like sort of show that no one's a completely unredeemable or irredeemable person, and that they can do both good and they can also do really bad things at the same, like not at the same time, but within their lifetime. And I think just this process, by just foregrounding that good and bad things have happened, is a part in helping us collectively reconcile these problems.
Is this part also of an overall reckoning with educational institutions and the systemic barriers that they have posed to some along the path?
Yeah, I definitely believe that. When I went to my undergrad in Hamilton, the costs were pretty minimal. If you went to school in Quebec, for example, the government it helps subsidize what the cost of university and college experiences are. Some provinces do it better than others. And I think even over time, just various groups and various communities who aren't as affluent to be able to go. And again, I think this process foreground various barriers that are prevalent for various groups and communities. And it's something like, I know that you've been talking a lot about the upcoming provincial election, and I think we need to be very forthcoming and very honest about what are these barriers that prohibit various groups of getting a fair foothold in our society.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point, and one of those things that definitely should and hopefully will be on the radar in the weeks ahead leading up to that provincial election. I also get the sense, Dino, that when we have a conversation, the likes of which you and I are having today, and we see a school like Toronto Metropolitan University make that deliberate choice to change its name, that this is really, I think, what we would hope to be the beginning of a process, right? We don't change the name from Ryerson University and then, kind of brush our hands together and say our work here is done.
I could not agree more. This is really important to have a public conversation about what some of the problematic past of TMU is, And then we need to, as various communities, whatever community you're part of, we need to be more forthright and upcoming about various people's backgrounds and how our institutions have prohibited certain people from getting in, or we've created certain barriers like we just talked about before. And I think we need to be really, really inclusive in our language and just the way that we talk to people to make sure that we respect people's diverse opinions and that we're going to consider them and that we try to fold them into our diverse, like, Canadian multicultural society.
What do you hope that we learn from this name change?
I think it's one of the things I was really happy about. I think if I had to bet before the name change was done, was that we move away from naming really important institutions like universities, colleges, or various public institutions after a single person. I like to consider myself. I try like most people, almost everyone. I try to make good moral decisions on a moment by moment, day by day basis. But inherently, we're all fallible. We've all done things that we're not as proud of. And I think that's something as a society we need to go forward, maybe not do that. And then also sort of to that point, no one's perfect. And I think we need to be honest in our appraisals of institutions that have already been named to weigh really, really, like, in a balanced way, what are the good and the bad, and see how we go forward. And even just having that conversation, it shows the people that could be dispossessed, who've not been celebrated in our society, who've not been included, that we're taking your voices and your stories and your narratives and your histories to heart, and that we're considering them, and we're trying our best to make all of us do better.
To that end, when you said, when considering the name change that was to come, you would have bet. It makes me think about the process that TMU undertook in making this selection. It sounds like the right people were around the table, so to speak, in terms of being consulted on the eventual new name.
As far as what I've read the report, I wasn't part of the committee, but the people, they canvassed a broad array of people, students, staff, faculty, various community leaders, historians, and just various groups that would help to move the ball forward. And again, it's something that you really need. Like, I'm not a history major by any means, but because of both the good and bad of Egerton Ryerson's background, I think they did a really good job of, again, finding the really good things that he did and the really bad things and weighing those. And then, like, again, if you paint someone as completely irredeemable, I think for people that might be hesitant about the name change, I think it helps to show them that you're doing this in good faith. So I think that's all been, like, done in a really transparent, open way with community consultation, which ultimately makes, I think, everyone feel better about the whole process and hopefully is moving us all forward.
Yeah, I would absolutely hope for the same. Dino, it's great to have this conversation with you today. Thanks for being a part of it, and congratulations again to your niece upon her graduation from UW.
Thanks so much, Mike. I really appreciate it. Take care.
You as well. Bye-bye. Dino Sosi is an instructional assistant in technology and media at the University of Toronto, and he took some time to consider what we can learn from the renaming of the now former Ryerson University in Toronto. And I like his take on this in two ways particularly. One is that throughout the consultation period that ultimately led to the renaming of Ryerson to TMU, Toronto Metropolitan University, Egerton Ryerson was not in any way portrayed as an irredeemable figure in history. There was context provided and nuance in the conversation that ultimately led to the decision to rename the school Toronto Metropolitan University. And the other thing I like particularly about what Dino said today, and it's something that we have touched on in the past in similar conversations, heretofore and henceforth, can we just do away with the naming of the things after the people? Probably, looking bigger picture, not the worst direction for us to move in. And I say that in full recognition that we have a Ken Sealing Museum in this region. We have a Dom Cardillo Arena in this region. We have a Carl Zare Square in this region. And, oh, yeah, we have a city itself named Kitchener. Our reckonings, plural, are probably coming at some point down the road. I also recall a conversation we had along these same lines some months ago with a professor from the University of Guelph who suggested maybe that names change on a decade-by-decade basis because we evolve as people and our cultural norms evolve along with ourselves, and you know what may have been okay in one decade may well not be okay in the next. Another, of course, name that springs to mind is Victoria, as in Victoria Park, as in the park in Kitchener that is the jewel of the city's park spaces and currently has a monument of Queen Victoria that has been doused not for the first time, but for the third time in red paint. And the paint, as we've been told by the city, is going to stay there for the time being. I think it's notable that we talk about what is now Toronto Metropolitan University because there is a Ryerson public school in Cambridge that is on the docket for a name change. If they somehow, some way decided that Preston Metropolitan University or Preston Metropolitan Public School would be the name for Ryerson Public, I think that'd be phenomenal. I say with tongue only partly in cheek. A.R. Kaufman School is slated for a name change here in the region. And we know that Sir John A. Macdonald in Waterloo has been renamed already, now to be known as Laurel Heights Secondary School. So I think really the big takeaway in all of this is who's with me in just stopping the naming of the things after the people from the past. Seems to me the shortest distance between 2 points here. And I think we can all take time and reflect and try to remove emotion and just have a conversation about a better way forward. And that doesn't mean that Egerton Ryerson is entirely irredeemable as a person, but it does mean on balance, after weighing all of the factors, that moving forward as TMU, Toronto Metropolitan University, is the way to move forward. This is the Mike Farwell Show on City News 570.
It's a give and take. Mike gives you a chance to call, and we get to hear your take. Call 519-570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715. More of the Mike Farwell Show after this.